Good morning, Will. How are you?
Good morning, Ty. I'm fine, thank you. Happy Monday to all of those out there that are listening. Cheam's up and running, so it's all good. Thank you very much.
Done. Fantastic. Will, I was just saying, you've had a few weeks now with feet under the desk at Cheam. You came from a family who were educationalists and in the teaching world. Did you ever consider doing anything else?
I kind of tried. So I went to Australia to be a jackaroo, which is kind of a cowboy, and I absolutely loved it. They taught me to ride, they taught me to work hard, and it was a big break from the boarding school I'd been at. So very different. And I wrote to my mum and my dad, and I said, I think I'm just going to stay and be a cattle farmer. Well,
I bet they love that.
My mum and dad, they're relatively conservative, and they were very clear that I had to go to university. So they didn't fly over, but it was made very clear, come to university. And then obviously I moved on. So I did try, but I think when you come from educational family, I think the truth is that the values that are there around the dining room table, my father used to get out an encyclopedia, read out words that we never heard of, and it just seeps into you. And it was a natural progression for me after I finished my religious studies degree that I would teach it, and I've loved teaching it ever since. So not really, I'm stuck, which is nice.
You can be a jackaroo in retirement, perhaps. Go back where you started.
Well, sometimes doing this job is a bit like being a jackaroo. You're rounding up all the children, you're making sure they're in the right place. So there are similarities.
Yeah. And I know you spent some time at Abingdon School and then went on to your first headship, I think, at the International School in New York, where you pretty much, did you set up the school or not quite?
Well, it was established, but I was its third head in 2 years. So it had a few leadership issues, I think. But the building was there. It just didn't have any policies, and it didn't have really what I consider to be the culture that's so central for these schools that we had to implement.
Sure. And how do you think it shaped you as a head? And was it hard to come home?
No, I did it for 5 years, and I desperately wanted to come home anyway. I'm a big family man, and my parents aren't young, and I wanted my 3 children to have grandparents that they worked with and remembered and loved visiting and all of that. So the actual transition home was a challenge in relation to logistics, but it was where I wanted to be. It's where my heart really is. What the British International School taught me is we had no grass, by the way, there, and it was a private school. And what we were really trying to do is grow international children. And the way you do that is by implementing culture and values that were outward looking and exciting. And I think that's probably what the British International School in New York gave me, is that values really matter. And those right values, those outward looking values that, this is a small globe and it's a small world now. It's a troubled world. We need leaders and children with values that can look out and go, Cheam's brilliant, but it's not the center of the world, and nor was Manhattan. What we want them to do is to have that confidence to go out and lead from their hearts. So I think that's what it taught me, that you can actually run a school in a relatively small environment as long as the values are clear and strong.
Sure. Will, you're a bit fuzzy my end. Can you see me all right?
I'm seeing you yes, I can see you fine, Ty. That's fine.
Okay, good. Well, I hope everyone else can see you better than I can.
Right.
At least we can hear you. That's the most important thing. And I mean, it's a big question, but how do you think education has evolved over the past few years? And do you feel that the current assessment process into senior school helps or hinders that educational journey that you're offering prep school?
Well, that is a big question.
I know. So
could take me half an hour to answer that. Let me break that down a little bit. If we talk immediately about COVID, that provided a school with the challenge of how do you teach online? Is that online education any good? And does it really work? And of course, Cheam, like many other schools at that time, was running the Beacon. Independent schools did it really well, actually. We looked after our children and we could communicate with technology. What we realized, however, is that we all like being together quite a lot, and that, as we know, the rise of mental health concerns throughout the country from COVID, lockdowns, these are things that this country's going to spend years to get over. So, and the other thing it proved to me is that actually community and being together is what children really relish about being in school. It is about the curriculum, but it's actually really more deeply about being together. And now we can be together and the joy of it. That's why the teachers do it, I suppose, that they love being with children and they love the inspiration that they give us as adults. But the other thing that happened is it gave parents the opportunity to see into the profession in a way they'd never done before. And they could see how complicated it is for a teacher to look after. At Cheam, it's about 16 children in a class, right? So there's a huge benefit. But if you had 32 in the state system, that is an enormous task of knowing everyone and looking after everyone. And I don't relish the educators that have to do that in large class sizes. It's almost impossible to do it properly. So we did that. And I think what everybody now realizes is because communities come back into school, that it's inevitably about the team. And the team is the teacher, the parent, the pupil, working together so that they can achieve the best result for their individual child and then the community. And I think parents have realized that, it's not straightforward in any lesson delivering the highest quality of inspiration and creativity. Nobody can do that consistently all the time without the support of a school, without the structure of what we would expect people to do. So this is like children not shouting out but putting their hand up first. These kind of traditional values are still there. I think if I go further, the teacher has moved from knowing information to imparting teamwork. So like kind of moving from sage to coach, that's something that the profession's definitely got on top of. I think about my teachers, some of them were angry, shouting a lot. None of that happens in the school context and shouldn't have when I was being educated. But all of that's changed. And then the framework of assessment, well, going into senior schools and indeed GCSEs and A-levels, I think you've got to have assessment of some sort. And I think our A-levels and our GCSEs are premium around the globe. They are a little bit restrictive in the sense of the knowledge that one child can know. But I think testing is important within schools and really important for children because that mimics what they'll have to do in the workplace where, your boss says, can you do this in half an hour? And you have to deliver. And I think that's really important. The entrance procedures into senior independent schools is in a mess and somebody needs to sort it out.
Yeah, that's probably a whole different call.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's probably an obvious question, but was it always the prep school age that you were passionate about? I mean, because they're quite different worlds, aren't they, from prep to senior?
Yeah, no, I was running the boarding at Abingdon, loving the senior school life, loving the relationships with 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And they particularly, at that stage, always gave me the kind of slightly trickier pupil, the ones that really needed a little bit extra to guide them towards the light as opposed towards darkness and doing mischievous things. And I enjoyed that. I did it for quite a while. And actually what I noticed with me is that if I'd done it for about 17 years, that I felt that I was cutting corners and I kind of knew it. And I didn't like that in myself. So I did step into the prep school world. And the reason I stepped into it is because of childhood. It's a joyous thing, childhood. It's a short thing. Memories are made for life within childhood. And schools should enable that. And schools like Cheam, especially Cheam maybe, there is so much joy here that you can't underestimate that as a value going forward for children into their adult life. A lot of people talk romantically about their prep schools or their early childhood experiences, and we've got to build on that because it makes happier people. And we need happy leaders in this world. And I think schools like this can do that if they handle the children sensitively and give them opportunities. So that's the joy that I've got, as opposed to this adolescent angst of a 16-year-old. That's a different challenge. But keeping the young happy, engaged, and a can-do mentality, I think that's brilliant. It's fun.
And can I touch on something as an ex-Cheam parent, and you know, no one's more passionate about Cheam than me, other than possibly you. But can I just, for someone looking at schools for the first time, we have on the occasion had a little tiny reputation of being a competitive arena. I'd love your thoughts. I mean, following your thoughts on childhood and how important that is, how do you balance the magic of prep school with, you know, the natural competitive spirit that perhaps Cheam has flown the flag on?
Yes, and we are competitive, and I think we've got to look at what competition means. You know, competition means giving opportunity for people to do something really, really well. And when they do something really, really well, I hope that they role model to others, you can do this. So there's the other bit to it. It's not about them. It's ultimately about teaching a child that, you know, you might well perform really well as a horse rider, but what do you give back to your community once you've done that? How do you role model success helpfully and successfully? So we are competitive, but we're not trying to exclude people. We're just showing what you can get to if you really practice and try, keep going. That should be rewarded. But everybody is welcome at Cheam, and every personality has a different way of learning and a different way of achieving. And what a school has to do is step back from its kind of competitive arenas like our first 11 or our girls' first 11 cricket team and go, actually, the third 11 played really well today. They played exceptionally well, and they did this. And we have to celebrate that. And assemblies, when we talk about newsletters, you know, unsung heroes are as important as the real heroes. So we have to work on that. And Cheam, yes, we're competitive, but, you know, the world is full of competition. The world, sibling rivalry. I have two other brothers. You know, it's kept the Phelps family going on because we essentially what we do is compete with each other. Yeah. So it's there, it's inbuilt in us. What I try and do is accept it's there and then round it off. So it's not about the individual, but always going back to the community. And then everyone has a chance to shine. And if you don't shine in a prep school like this, then that's probably the prep school's fault, because every child has something glittery to offer our world.
And they also develop at such different stages, don't they? So it's a sort of superficial. If you're, you know, if you're a hero 1 minute, that's fantastic, but you just may not have it may not be your time, and it's okay to, you know, bring that out in a child.
That's totally the case. And in fact, you know, I don't think I really came together as an adult until I was 25. You know, so if then, I mean, some people say I'm still not together. You know, the truth about it is that, you know, there is a time for everything, and it might not be at Cheam, but I don't want them to give up. You know, I spoke to the school today. We did a concerto concert on Thursday. These are our year 8 children who are singing and playing instruments, and they're really good, unashamedly really good. But the truth is, you don't want a child to stop to give up an instrument or to stop singing. So you speak to the school and you say, never stop playing your instrument or singing, because when you put it down and you stop singing, you know, it's really difficult to pick it back up. And you have to teach them that. So it's about timing, really,
And again, for a prospective family who are looking at perhaps leaving London or moving out to the country and looking at prep schools, is there such a thing as a typical Cheam child? Are you looking for a child that will flourish within the community you talked about?
Well, I'll say that we're a mainstream school with enormous amounts of activity, and that requires children willing to give that a go. And there are some children that would find this school too much, i.e. be too busy, or their learning profile is such that this would be overwhelming for them, right? So we're mainstream, but we're mainstream in a really important way that says, give everything a go, have that optimism, have that opportunity to explore everything that is here. No one child can do everything Cheam asks of you. So we need them to have the initiative to kind of navigate what they really want from us, and we'll help them with it. But we are this country prep school that allows every child with all sorts of abilities to really enjoy coming to school. And they really do. They really love it. And the reason they really love it is I think we match, or can match, their home life to their school life. So, you know, about 40% of this school at a weekend will be on a pony. right? Riding. Now, that's great, and I'm really pleased they do it. But they don't ride a Cheam at the moment. We don't have horses and all that. But we want that experience to be celebrated and accepted. So that is essentially what we're trying to do. So I think for a prospective parent out there, you've just got to come and see any school you're looking at to kind of feel it and know whether it matches you. And if Cheam matches you, it's genuinely going to be a happy experience, even when your sons and daughters get it wrong, and they will.
Absolutely. And actually it expands beyond the child. Obviously, I mean, I know it's such a family school for siblings, and for the family as a whole. I think it can be the bedrock of, you know, families meeting other lovely friends, and, you know, those prep school years you sort of take for granted whilst you're doing them, and then suddenly you realize at senior school it is a different beast.
Yeah, and you know, early years parenting is lonely. It's a difficult thing to do. You know, maybe you've just stepped into the arena of having your first child, or maybe you've got several children, but it still can be isolating for mum and for dad. And what we try to do is offer you the opportunity to come and, you know, hang out on the Headmaster's loggia, have a cup of tea and go, whew, well, I never expected that, and gather your friendships, because prep school, early years childhood friendships that are actually made for life, because you're going through quite a challenging moment. Early years children can be really challenging and really difficult for parents who really want to get it right. And actually what the child is teaching you is, you can't get it right, parents. You just have to pick your battles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And do you, I mean, it's a tricky one because you've only just begun, but I mean, you've obviously had a few weeks to look at the sort of macro. Do you see any huge change in direction for Cheam? Or have you, or anything that you can let us know about?
So I can't let you into what I really think at this stage, because what you're doing is, in the first term, I've sent surveys to parents, to pupils, and to staff, people who work for the school, and asked them their opinions. So we can filter all that detail, and that's still coming into my office at the moment as we work through the responses. The bit that I can assure you is that the culture and the children in this school are really, the children are really happy. So actually, fundamentally, Cheam has got a lot that's right. Yes, I could use the rooms differently. Yes, I could update certain facilities. I can certainly see that on its way. But fundamentally, when I come down to it, the reason I took the job, right, is that I went to the children of Cheam that were at Marlborough, and I said, do you still like your prep school? And all of them said, yes, they really loved it. It was magical. So you kind of know a lot is right here. And so here's the trick of being a head teacher when a lot of it is right, is picking the bits that actually we could improve on to make us stronger overall. And that takes a little bit longer. I am interested, though, in the sense that we don't teach cooking and nutrition to children. Now, that's something that's come and gone in schools over time in history. But if a child doesn't know how to prepare food and how to prepare food in a healthy way, there is a problem there that we need to get on top of. And I kind of like the idea in my own mind of cooking and nutrition going together, so children understand food better, and so they understand what is a positive meal and what is a negative meal, and where calories exist. And I think that's something that prep schools should do, and we don't do it at the moment. We'll do it in biology, we'll do it in all sorts of other areas, but we won't specify it. And I think that might be an area that I push on quite quickly.
And you're also, fun enough, I did visit you at your previous school, and I do remember this amazing well-being room. I mean, that's an area that you're passionate about as well, isn't it?
Yes, and that, so well-being is something that I often ask people, what do you mean by well-being? And nobody's yet managed to find that solution for me.
Yeah.
Rather like kind of 21st century skills. No one seems to know what they are either. But well-being is something that needs to permeate a school. The truth is that children need to share their concerns. Children need to know that the team is behind them, and children need to know where to go to ask for help, because I think we all know that talking actually does help them resolve some issues if they're feeling isolated or lonely. Children coming out of COVID in general, more of those problems than schools have ever experienced before. So yes, a well-being room where a child can know they can get all the support they need designated is a good thing and something that I think is important for a school to have. However, it's also a culture because, I know as a child that if I needed help, I would never have gone to the wellbeing room. That would have labeled me as, oh, I need help, right? So you've also got to train the staff up to be ready to spot the concerns and to listen and share those concerns. And actually, I will share this, that I think Cheam as a staff room is extraordinary. And the reason I say that, and I would have said that about all schools, but we meet every day for at least 10 minutes. And the talk is not just the headmaster saying, do this, do that. The talk is actually about today, this child is having a problem. And we share it in a sensible, professional way that means that all of our little antennas are up and we're all looking after that child for that day. That is well-being across the board. It isn't necessarily a rooms are important as well to give it focus, but actually well-being is done on the cricket pitch, done in the sports hall, done in the French room, wherever, by the adults that are looking after these very young adults, children.
And it's the collaboration, isn't it? It's knowing that there might have been a disappointment on the cricket pitch that's led to behaviour in the French class that's, that hasn't made boarding that easy that night. It's that whole collaboration.
Yeah, and then there's that. That's a school's thing, but then there's all the other issues in our world that our children face. We can't get away from divorce is there. I'm afraid death is there. I'm afraid birth is there. All of these things can be impacting on a child. And don't underestimate the rolling 24/7 news that they're watching, even just in the corner of the room. Anything like the Ukrainian crisis that's going on there, these all impact on our children. So resilience is going to be something that all of them are going to need in their lives, and we need to give them that. And you get resilience by sharing concerns, by being brave.
And Will, just winding up now, just a little bit more about you. What might be something that people don't know about you?
So I've hidden my football team from the school. They've asked what football team I support, and I'm not telling them. So if you can find that out, that is something people don't know about me. But I suppose the truth, I'm going to flip that question. I don't believe in secrets. I don't believe in secrets in schools. They're very negative and they never work. So I try to be the authentic person. I'm very happy for people to ask me all sorts of questions about anything in my life when you come into this office. And if it's too personal, I go, I'm not interested in talking about that. But the reality is authenticity for leadership is absolutely central for gaining the trust that it takes to leave your son or daughter at any school. So I don't really have much that's hidden, Tyra, I'm afraid.
No, that's the perfect answer. Well, Will, thank you for your time. And it sounds like exciting times ahead at Cheam. Really look forward to your journey. And perhaps we can catch up with you in 6 months or so and see how things are going.
Lovely to speak to you all. Thank you for listening. And thanks for interviewing me.
Pleasure. Speak soon. Thanks so much.
Bye.